The shots of the start of the Sacarello Trophy, the endurance race, which was postponed for a couple of weeks. We see Calpe's third decide the winner. That crew there, Jean-Paul Risso at stroke, Patrick Cavesuto, Alan Darlington and Carl De Vincenzi, Stuart Brittenden, the cocks in Calpe. They were first to go, the crews being allowed to start at 30-second intervals and then being timed in for the amount of time they took to cover the course, which was very grueling, as always, going 2 circuits of the inside of the harbour, finishing where they started. That is Med's third crew, starting in second position. Orlando Viñas is a stroke there, Philip Maia Silva, Jansen Avellano, and Carl Barabich, with Javier Millán as cocks. They set off in pursuit, the idea being to try and gain as much as possible on the opponent, since that is the only reference really you have on how you're doing time-wise vis-a-vis the other crews. Quite good conditions, as you can see, as Calpe's second crew gets underway. And here we had Dennis Peñarvé at stroke, Leslie Grech at 3, Jason Napoli and Owen Smith, and Kieran Aquilino was the cocks in this boat. They were rowing in Chiquet, and they set off third position, followed by the Med Rowing Club's second crew, a young crew comprising James Viñales at stroke, you see him, Peter Buttigieg at number 3, Stephen Almang, Ruben Rodriguez at 1, and Cox over here being Chris Attard. Setting off at a pretty lively pace, but then settling down to a rhythm. They had to settle down to this rhythm very quickly, conscious no doubt of the distance they had to cover, some 7 kilometers in all, I think, and really a test not only for skill but certainly for stamina. The last of the Calpe crews to get underway was their first crew, and there we had Shane Shakaluga at stroke, Edmund Bensadong, Clive Baker and Christopher Borge, and Keith Bautista was the cocks in this particular boat, which goes by the name of Speedy. They too starting at a steady rhythm, power in the strokes, but really quite a low rate. And the last crew to start the race, the Med's first crew, very strong crew, young but strong, Nicky Viñales at stroke, Cathal Yates at number 3, Tyron Moreno, with Gavin Griffin at number 1, Ian McIntosh in charge of the rudder. And quite a spectacle they made, in fact, going up in a southerly direction. For the first time, the boat spread out across the harbour. Luckily, there was no interference from pleasure boats or motorboats on this occasion to mar the spectacle. And the boats having to go round what is commonly known as the 2-minute buoy, that yellow buoy which you can see over there. They then went in the direction of the commercial dockyard. There was another buoy which had been laid just around there and would return along the shore side of the harbour itself. Difficult to gauge from this shot how people were doing, but the best reference would come when they turned again at the buoy which was situated near the start. The boat still pretty much spread out, and certainly, if anything, Med had to be the favourites for this particular event, because the previous weekend they had competed in Malaga and they did extremely well, the Med Rowing Club, on that occasion, and I'll be giving you the results of that Malaga trip at the end of this report. But coming back, the Calpe third crew still out in front, but the others seeming to have concertinaed somewhat and much closer together. That's the crew of Jean-Paul Risso, Patrick Cavesuto, Alan Darlington and Carl De Vincenzi. They seem to be maintaining a lead. But look at those 2 Med boats very close together around Calpe's second crew. And certainly the third, or rather the first crew, the one that set out in last position, the Med's first crew, already practically having caught the Calpe first crew, which had set out 30 seconds ahead of them. But moving now towards the halfway stage, more or less, of the race, which was the turn of the buoy at the northern end of the harbour.
and clear water, as you can see, between the Carpe third crew and the following two boats. There they come into the turn. Good rhythm in their rowing, good technique, and certainly being such a young crew, they're displaying quite a lot of promise. Hopefully they'll stay together and persevere. And in fact, the Med second crew too, particularly a young crew, which is also showing a lot of potential, a lot of promise, and the second crew races should be quite interesting this season. The first crew races look as though it's going to be Med season again, but some problems here. You just saw the hand raised aloft of the Carpe Cox, but really in this particular regatta where there are no lanes, it's impossible to gauge whether a boat is trying to cut you off or whatever, and really the coxes should give all the boats a wide berth and avoid really overtaking when they're going round a buoy, which makes it practically impossible. There is of course plenty of time afterwards to do it. The Med crew actually stopping for a couple of lengths there, or a couple of strokes rather. Look how quickly though they've been swallowed up by the Med's first crew. So Med, even though we didn't have split times at this stage, this is the Med's second crew, but they'd already caught up with the Carpe's boat. So certainly Med looking to be ahead, particularly we consider the two first crews were practically side by side, or just 1 or 2 lengths behind the Med crew. So here we have the Carpe first crew just coming to take their turn. And there's a lot of expectation this season too, from the fact that Carpe will be moving to their new premises, the clubhouse now nearing completion. So Carpe hoping to see the start of a new era for them. They haven't been particularly successful. There the Med crew actually stopping for a while. They tried to get inside Carpe for the bend, and that really there was no room past there. And I suppose they did the most sensible thing in stopping altogether, allowing Carpe to go past. And look how quickly they accelerate coming out after that turn. And they're already practically abreast of the Carpe boat, and in fact were soon to go well past them. So the 6 boats then, the fleet moving up southerly direction to do the whole thing again. This time the finish though would be their target. 7 kilometers really is a long way, and at the start of the season too, where all the training that has been done has been off-season, it makes it even harder. It might be an idea, in fact, to row this at the end of the season where they've got more training in them. But traditionally it's always started events. We see Carpe's third crew managing to maintain their lead. But the Med boats, particularly the second and first crews, coming in there very close behind the Carpe second crew. So there was clearly some time advantage there to be gained. In the event, the 3 Carpe crews, in fact, registering very similar times, and that doesn't augur too well for Carpe, if we consider that the third crew, you've got in picture, quite a crew of youngsters, should register practically the same time as their first crew. Third crew just a few seconds more than the first crew, and the first crew will have to certainly do a lot better if they're to mount a serious challenge against the Med first crew, who are certainly looking very strong this year. There we see the finish for John-Paul Riso, Patrick Cavasuto, Alan Darlington and Carl De Vincenzi. A good solid row from them. And let's see how they do in second crew races this season. A particularly good row too for the Med's second crew. They'd gone past a couple of boats to finish in second position. This is James Vignale, Peter Buttigieg, Stephen Alman and Ruben Rodriguez coming through with Chris Attard as Cox. And that certainly is a very good row from them. Very strong, this crew. And certainly they will be hard to beat too. And behind them, quite a rush for the line. There we have Med's third crew. of Orlando Viñas, Philip Maya Silva, Jansen Avellano and Carl Baravich, just getting in ahead of Calpe's second crew of Dennis Benyarver, Leslie Breck, Jason Napoli and Owen Smith. Med's first crew also done extremely well to make up so much ground. They came in next with Nicky Viñales, Cathal Yates, Tyler Moreno and Gavin Griffin. And the Calpe first crew a long, long way back, as you can see, despite having started 30 seconds ahead of the Med first crew. And when the times were all added up, it was clearly going to be Med Rowing Club's day, and so it was. Med clocking a collective time of 81 minutes, 35.98 seconds, to Calpe Rowing Club's 83 minutes, 16.67 seconds. And the difference, just under 1 3/4 minutes, so certainly very clear advantage for the Med Rowing Club, who start the season with a victory and are looking very strong indeed. Celebration starting practically the minute that the race had finished. There we see the Med first crew, and they are certainly strong contenders for most of the senior races this season, particularly given the apparent weakness of the Calpe first crew this season. The second crew, but Med Rowing Club also showing that they have youngsters to fill the ranks. This is 4-month-old Stephanie De Soto, and the future certainly looks bright for the Med Rowing Club. Well, earlier on in this report I mentioned that Med also did very well in Malaga last weekend. Here we have the results, starting with the junior under-18 competition over 2,000 meters round boys. Med Rowing Club coming first with a time of 7 minutes 55 seconds, some 3 to 4 lengths ahead of the Calpe crew, who were in second position. There were also 2 Malaga crews competing. The winning crews, you can see James Viñales, Peter Buttigieg, Stephen Alman and Ruben Rodriguez, with Chris Attard as cox. In the veterans category over 1,000 meters, half the distance, Med also proving too strong. They came in first in 3 minutes and 50 seconds ahead of Calpe. And there we had Tony De Soto, John Collado, Luis Baglietto and Johnny Gonzalez, a stroke with Chris Attard as cox. Moving to the ladies competition, again over 2,000 meters, Med clocking 9 minutes 21 to win this event ahead of Malaga, beating them by 3 to 4 lengths. The ladies crew comprising Joanne Alger, Jeddah Figueras, Christine Haviland and Tamara Villagas, Ian McIntosh being the cox on that occasion. But the senior events, the one which they all wanted to win, Med's first crew again coming first, 7 minutes 45 their time over 2,000 meters. This very strong young first crew of Nicky Viñales, Cathal Yates, Tyra Moreno and Gavin Griffin, Ian McIntosh being the cox in that boat. So certainly the season now off to a start. Those results rather in Malaga showing that Med Rowing Club are very strong this season. Calpe also showing some promise, particularly with their younger crews in the endurance race. So the scene is set really for a very competitive rowing season in the months ahead.